Good evening. So we decided to have a roundtable discussion of the administration team here at East Bridgewater Public Schools for those of you in the community, our parents, those of you who are not parents of students that go to East Bridgewater but do want to hear what the schools will be doing come our fall opening or reopening, since we've been closed since March 13th, 2020, due to the pandemic and our response to COVID. To my left, or to my right, we have Dr. Gina Williams, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction. And to her right is Karen Clifford. She is the Department Head, K through 12 Guidance Department Head for Guidance, but has taken on the lead role for our COVID response task force leader for the district due to the DESE guidelines that we needed to put someone in place for that so that the superintendent's office can continue on with daily operations, that the curriculum and instruction office can push on daily operations, and then we'd have one person in charge bringing us information that comes through to DESE so that Mrs. Clifford could talk to myself, Dr. Williams, or all the way to the right would be John Shea, our business administrator for the district, and he'll be here in just a moment. In between John Shea and Mrs. Clifford is Sue Malloy. She is from our local Board of Health here in East Bridgewater. She has been actually our COVID response sort of team leader for the district, for the community of East Bridgewater. She has supported us with giving us data, making sure that we are up on the CDC guidelines, making sure that we hear from the Department of Health from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and she's become a partner with the schools so that we can reopen and been part of our task force so that we can get open for 2020 fall. To my left is Andrew Gentile, principal of the Mitchell School. To his left is Kate Byrne, principal of the Central School. And to her left is our newest member of the administrative team, assistant principal at the junior senior high school, William Clement. And to his left is Mr. Sylvia in his second year at the junior senior high school, or 1 year and 3/4 to March 13th, and then had a drive-by graduation, which was a great success, and has done some other things here at the high school that has seemed to gone off without a hitch. So we wanted to begin tonight just by talking about a few things that are going on in the district that we can highlight. Tomorrow, the principals will be giving a presentation to the task force that has joined us. We have over 45 people on the task force, parents, community members, Board of Selectmen, Board of Health, administration, custodial staffing, the unions, presidents of custodial, the EBEA Teachers Association, the EBA Instructional Assistants Association, and also our Secretarial Association has been part of the task force. We will be moving in the direction of reopening the schools as September hits. And I'll start with, I know that Mrs. Clifford is going to go through and be our moderator and ask us some questions to go through. But I do want to open this by just saying we are confident in the safety protocols and guidelines that we are putting in place, that we will be able to open or reopen our schools effectively, efficiently, with safety in the forefront. We certainly know that this is a rapidly changing, event-driven calendar. We know that we cannot predict the future, or if there will be a surge, or if there won't be a surge in East Bridgewater or in the Commonwealth. We will certainly listen to the data. We will do the things that we need to do in our school district to maintain a socially distance, hand washing, wearing masks, doing the things that we need to do to kids, to keep students in school safely and so that they have social interaction with their peers, which we certainly need to do at this time. We also have our safety of our staff and our faculty members and all of those who come in and out of the district on a daily basis to support the schools and to support the students and to support everything that we do here at the EBPS, and we will continue to do so in a safe manner. I wish I could tell you that we will open up and not have any issues, but as I have said, and as my administration team would say, I probably say it on a daily basis, schools are event-driven. We would have never thought that we would have closed school on March 13th at 1:30 in the afternoon due to a pandemic or an epidemic at that time. We remained closed. We thought we would open up April 1st. We thought we would reopen on Monday, May 4th. We never did. We remained closed. We remained at home. We remained in remote learning. The weaknesses that we found out about ourselves in the spring with how we pushed out our remote learning have become our strengths. We talked about power standards, and Dr. Williams will talk about that a little bit when she speaks this today. We know we need to do some things better. We know we need to do things with a more rigor. We need to supply more support in areas that maybe we didn't, and we will do so. When it comes to transportation, there will be some things that we'll discuss today. And when it comes to our food service, we'll discuss that as well. This is an event-driven model. On Thursday night, the school committee at 7 p.m. will make a decision on which model we will go into for the fall school year of 20 and 21. And that will be Thursday at 7 o'clock. At 6 p.m., there will be a parent forum here in the auditorium if you'd like to come and see some of the models that will be put up on the in PowerPoint fashion or Google slide fashion, and we'll go through the slides. But this is an opportunity for us to talk directly to you today. You're seeing this taped. We had questions come in over the last 3 to 4 weeks about reopening, and the questions that we've gotten, Mrs. Clifford has put all of these together. They could be questions, they could be concerns, and we'll try to answer the best that we can. Our principals are here. They want to answer the best that they can. Tomorrow they will present their models again that I said to the task force and talk about them so the task force has an idea of the recommendation that they will recommend going forward to the school committee for Thursday night at 7 p.m. So Mrs. Clifford, if you'd like to begin, or...
Is it true that school will be starting 10 days late, and what is our new start date?
Yes, we are starting 10 days late. The staff will come in on August 31st. They will begin professional development. They have requested 10 days. Every school district has requested 10 days in the Commonwealth, not just the EBA, and the commissioner has granted that, and so students will now begin on September 16th.
Will the rest of the calendar year be affected regarding teacher resource days, vacations, etc.? And when can we expect a new calendar to be published?
Yes, school vacations are staying the same. The end date is still the same on June 18th, 2021. The calendar will be approved, or hopefully will be approved on Thursday night at 7 p.m., which will help us to maintain our model going into the school year. We'll also be working with the union for their, we consult with the union with the calendar each year, and they will get a copy. They we sent them a copy today. Dr. Williams just finished the calendar, and we will send that out to the EBEA.
Will there be an orientation for pre-K, kindergarten, and first grade students, or students transitioning from elementary to middle or middle to junior, senior high school?
I can speak to the pre-KK and grades 1. We definitely will have some type of opportunity for them that's in the works now, talking with other teachers about that. It might look different from pre-K and K versus grades 1 and 2, but we will definitely offer something.
Similarly, for students transitioning to Mitchell, we're in the process of making those plans now, and those will be finalized once we have a plan in place for our opening, and then we'll communicate that with families.
And at the junior, senior high school, I believe that we are also in the process of planning 2 events, one for a 7th grade orientation and one for a 9th grade orientation as well.
Thank you. At this meeting, will we know what the plan will be for preschool? Or after this meeting, will we know? If the hybrid model is presented, will we know what that will look like for 2-day or 3-day?
The proposal I have for preschool is actually based on our current enrollment figures. We're looking to try to have the opportunity to bring all of our preschool, in every day. Our integrated preschool model, the class size is low enough to accommodate social distancing, so we can easily do that with our AM and PM sessions. Those won't have to change whatsoever. They can come Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday as planned. The proposal is to repurpose some space at Central School, so that way we will hopefully be able to get all of our full-day preschool students who are currently still enrolled the opportunity to come. We will have to do some reassignments if that's the case, but if we are able to do that because they are high needs population, they'll be able to come per their schedule. So whether it's 5 full days, 3 full days, or 2 full days.
Thank you. Would we need to pay the entire year if my child is no longer attending?
If you unenroll your child, you will not have to pay. If you stay enrolled and would like the opportunity, if we may go remote, hybrid, and there's some flexibility, if you don't want to be part of that, then your choice would be to unenroll. If you stay enrolled, we are looking for those families to commit to paying the tuition. Any adjustment to that would be up to school committee.
What is the difference between homeschooling and remote learning?
Homeschooling is the option for families to have their students remain at home, and the family provides the curriculum and the instruction. And every year that's an option for families. This year, remote learning, parents have the option for students to opt to remain home. However, the district would be responsible for providing the instruction.
What do the 3 plans look like for teaching and learning?
The 3 plans are on a continuum with the most desirable one being full in person. And as long as we can adhere to all the safety protocols and regulations, we would have students return to full in person. If we're not able to abide by the requirements put forth by the state, then we would be forced to a hybrid approach, which would alternate students on schedules to reduce the population of students in school. And then if there were further safety guidelines and restrictions allowing us not to have students in school at all and closing the schools, we would be fully remote, which means all students would be learning from home.
What measures are going to be put into place to periodically evaluate how a child is grasping the concepts being taught to ensure they're understood and that the child is on par with what is expected for their grade level? And if they appear to be struggling, what resources will be in place for individualized help to allow for the child to catch up?
Just like with every school year, we expect there to be learning loss over the summer. And of course, with the closure of school in the spring, we're expecting that to be even more pronounced with our students. So we are expecting, as we do every year, to have benchmark testing and identification of learning loss and gaps that have been established. And that will be the expectation of staff to work through those and get students where they need to be. The other piece of that is the state has identified power standards, and those will be primarily focused on those most needed skill sets that students need within each of the grade levels, and that will be a priority for us as well.
How will the curriculum be adjusted going forward based upon the lost time last year and this year?
And sort of to what I had just said, focusing on those power standards, and also being mindful that if students are still struggling with what has been put in place, then we would follow all the same procedures and requirements that we would have in a traditional learning environment, where students could be referred for a child study or even possibly an evaluation.
What was the decision to move to a hybrid model based on? Positive rates locally, statewide, nationally, or community feedback?
Thank you. All of the above, including the inability for us to position students to be placed safely in person due to maintaining a distance of 6 feet in all the classrooms. We don't have the space.
What will the decision to move to full remote or full in-class be based on?
The data that we collect, and we will be continuing to review it to determine the movement among the phases that we go through in the schools.
If not 100% in the classroom, what criteria needs to be met for children to go back to classroom learning?
Just to continue, we're looking at the data collected by the state and local government, DESE guidance on a daily basis, our own data here in East Bridgewater. I'm listening to our principals and our teachers on a daily basis, hearing from the community and parents, and we'll continue to just baseline it and make sure that we know where we started on the data. If it's moving up, if numbers are coming down, we'll continue to identify where we're at and continue to make movement.
Will there be an option for kids to return 100% if the family chooses, just as families have the choice to be 100% remote?
No. We'll follow safety guidelines. It'd be too difficult for the district to do both models.
Will additional support such as occupational or speech therapy be available, and if so, how?
Dr. Williams, is that you?
All students requiring services, we would continue to abide by their IEP, and they would get the service provided to them based on what has been outlined in their IEP.
When will IEP evaluations begin for my child turning 3 in mid-September?
We would follow all the same guidelines and timeframes that have been put out from the Department of Early Childhood in elementary and secondary education. So upon a student turning 3, a parent would notify the school district, and we would follow all the protocols needed.
Do you know when the kids that were supposed to be tested for an IEP before schools closed will be tested?
Again, we would be following the guidelines put out through the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed to adhere to all of those timeframes and make sure that those evaluations happen.
Will temperature checks be required of anyone entering the school, and should parents check temperatures every morning?
Temperature checks will not be taken at school, and certainly we would have the expectations that parents would be monitoring their children and checking for any signs or symptoms and keeping them home.
Will illness policies and quarantine policies be updated and implemented? Yes.
Dr. Williams and I have spent a lot of time together, so as we pass this mic, and I don't have my mask on, I am 6 feet from Mr. Gentile and Dr. Williams, but I do spend a lot of time in the offices. We do wear our masks in, and we are continuing to clean, so I don't want anybody to think out there that we're not being safe, but we have spent time, as you know, your family away from your family at home, so.
Do you want me to repeat the question?
Yes, could you please?
Will illness policies and quarantine policies be updated and implemented?
Yes. And the MASC is working with the school, every school committee in the Commonwealth. We're working with our local health departments if we have to change any policies.
If a student or teacher is exposed and needs to isolate or test positive, what is the protocol?
So under DPH and DESE guidelines right now, if a student needs to isolate and they test positive, or a teacher, They're out for 10 days minimum, 24 hours of those fever-free, whether they have symptoms or not. If they're identified as a close contact, being anyone that has had contact with a positive case within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes, or in the elementary school, if there's a positive case in a small classroom, they would all be considered a contact. They would have to stay home 4 to 5 days and then get a test. If they test negative, they can come back. If they opt not to be tested, they have to stay home for 14 days and then they can return.
Thank you.
What about families traveling? How will that be handled, and will students be allowed to come back to school?
So the governor has just issued a new travel order, I'm sure everybody has seen. Pretty much New England, Hawaii, New York, and New Jersey are the safe states. Anywhere else that somebody travels, even for one overnight, they need to either test 72 hours before returning home and have a negative test, or quarantine for 14 days. There have been recently cases of exposure from traveling, so we really want parents to be mindful of that new order.
Karen, before you go on any further, so I would just say that to our parents that are watching this today, or any students, especially the seniors, when you travel out of state, we need to be very careful of what we're doing and where we're going and who we're with. And I would hope that we're going to be on the honor system and honesty when we report back to school. We've got to see, unfortunately, Falmouth High School did not get to graduate this year. It was called off Thursday night, very late at night, I think around 9 p.m., that the superintendent of schools had to cancel due to students being at an outdoor gathering in Chatham. We really need to take a very serious look at how we travel and what we're doing, and parents need to take it serious and let the principals know that we'll be back in 14 days, that we did go out of town, that we were someplace that someone was affected. We're going to quarantine ourselves, get a test, and we'll let you know. Our nurses need to be up on this so that we can be safe for everybody else.
And just to add to that, Mrs. Williams, Dr. Williams has assured me that students that have to quarantine will be able to do remote learning. So they won't really be missing any school. And, you know, there are fines, and, you know, I don't think we're going to get to that point, but I know the teachers have expressed a real concern about this. And, you know, they really asked us to really enforce this order. So we're hoping everyone is just honest and uses the honor system and does what they're supposed to do.
Will each school be treated separately if there is a positive or suspected positive case in a school?
Yes, and we're going to have to trace it. So let's make an example. We have a child at the high school, has no other siblings, one child at home. We'll trace it, and we'll take every case individually. If a child has a sibling at the Mitchell School and at the Central School, which we have in the district, and one of those siblings tests positive, that is when we will make the decision and the determination. But we will look at classrooms first and what students they were around, and the teacher that they were around, or where they were at the time of day and how long. And we'll take, these are going to be individual cases, one by one, and we'll do the best that we can to make it sure that it's safe. And we'll also be talking to the Board of Health.
Now we're seeing kids out and about playing sports, hanging out at the fields, hanging out at the parking lot out here, I saw Friday night. I would just ask people, I've recently had trouble with people being forthcoming with their contacts. They're afraid of looking bad or getting in trouble, and reassure people that we're in the phase where people are being a little bit more social, so just be honest, because what that does is stop the spread so we can keep going to school. So if we have to quarantine a few extra people for 14 days because you were out at the ball field the night before, that's okay. You're not in trouble. We just want to stop the spread, so that's how we're going to do it, by being honest and identifying the real contacts.
So in a similar vein, I think you answered this, but I want to ask the question because somebody sent it in to me. What is the protocol for contacting the school and parents in the event a student or teacher tests positive for COVID-19? Will the entire district be shut down? just at school, just the class/grade that may have been exposed?
Again, each case is going to be handled individually. According to the guidelines, we'll be talking with the school nurse, our local health department, contract tracing. We'll do everything that we're supposed to do, and we're going to do it right. And again, to Sue Malloy, just saying, being honest, wearing your mask when you're in public, washing your hands, being diligent, social distancing.
The next question is regarding the groupings of the cohorts for students. There's a suggestion of geographic location for student schedule groupings to help facilitate safe socialization with schoolmates, neighbors on remote days. So it's more along the lines of how are the cohorts being grouped.
So in the event of a hybrid model, we would need to identify cohorts of students. So our first priority is trying to maintain the groupings that were already established based on students' academic needs and matching of students with faculty. So we're going to try to do that to the best of our abilities, knowing that we also need to take into account transportation and the limitations on students being on buses, as well as siblings across buildings. So we are looking and factoring all those things in when we establish cohorts of students.
Central students have already been assigned teachers. Can we expect those assignments to change based on which students choose to attend remotely? Or will a teacher be required to teach both hybrid and remote students?
The central school assignments that went home at the end of the year in the report cards are still the placement for the fall. So whether we're hybrid, remote, whatever model we're going in, it would still stay the same. And yes, the expectation, we'll review a little further tomorrow in our presentations, but the teacher would be expected, the same classroom teacher, to handle the remote learning as well as the in-person learning.
In a hybrid model, if parents have friends with similar age students who are able to help each other with remote teaching, daycare, transportation, etc., will these requests be allowed?
Certainly we'll accept the requests, and we ask that families get in touch with the principals of their children's school building, and just by notifying one principal at their email address and letting them know if you have other children in the district, because we'll want to try to keep them together. We'll try to accommodate as best we can, however, it may not be possible.
What is the plan for entry and exit from schools? We'll start with the central school.
Sure. We've been working on the plans for staggering off of the buses as well as students that are drop off. I know that's probably a large concern. Questions about the volume that we might expect if we have more people dropping off. The other thing to think about, if we do a hybrid, we also only have half of the population there. So part of it will also need to be seeing how many people actually come to drop off, because if we handle a typical full school volume with half the volume, we can easily accommodate that, like we would on every year. We'll also be looking at our policies for staggering dismissal as well, and locations and times as far as which buses move first and how many students move around the building.
Very similar at the Mitchell, taking a look at utilizing all of the entrances to the buildings that's available, staggering both the entry and dismissal of students. And again, as Mrs. Byrne mentioned, we feel very confident, particularly in a hybrid model, that we'll be able to safely maintain distance. And although the process may be a little bit longer than typical just due to the staggering, I anticipate us being able to manage it smoothly.
And finally, for the junior, senior high school, same thing. We're looking at all entrances and exits. We're fortunate enough to have two major entrances, exits at the front of the building. We have a few places where we can do the same in the back of the building for the buses. So we're planning on all situations. Again, we'll maintain all the standards, all the safety regulations, and we will do it with fidelity and to the best of our ability.
Will there be extracurriculars, sports, drama, band, etc.? And if so, what will they look like?
We hope so. The MIAA has not come out with their final determination for sports. We're waiting on that. if we're in school, we hope that we have sports. It may be, you may see a few different sports at different times of the year. However, we hope that we can get back and getting kids out there on the playing fields. Drama is actually having a production at 5:30 on Friday and Saturday out in the parking lot. So we are running that extracurricular, and I've seen the kids out there tap dancing. I'm not going to give it away, but they have been out there in the heat with their masks on and doing a tremendous job. If you haven't, if you're not dropping off kids and you haven't seen them, it's pretty neat to see that. The band, Mr. Sylvia?
As for the band, we're meeting with the music department on Thursday this week to discuss any concerns. We're also going to discuss all possible situations and look at what's best for our students and the safety of all our staff and students.
Will backpacks be allowed?
Yes.
Will students be allowed to bring their lunch to school?
Yes.
Has the air quality of our schools been examined and addressed? I know Central School's second floor gets extremely hot. How will this be handled?
So we test our buildings periodically. Last year at Central School, we did have rooms tested and areas tested in that building. The air quality was good. We have a full, probably 300 pages of documentation of how many places they tested, pictures, and the air quality was good. We understand that, and yes, we have been asked to test all of our buildings. Mr. Shea and Mr. Kiley had that conversation today. They will be, the commissioner has sent some information on the vendors and companies that will come out and test that have already been approved by the state to come out and test for air quality in the school buildings. We will be testing all 3 buildings, Central School, Mitchell, and the junior senior high school.
Is there proper ventilation in all spaces? And if not, what are the plans to address the shortcomings prior to the start of school?
I would like to say yes, but there's probably not proper ventilation in every place in every school. However, the principals have been moving rooms around, opening them up because we're taking desks out, we're taking tables out, we're taking closets out of rooms so that we can have more room, so that we can fit more students. And if we can improve the ventilation in a room with a dehumidifier or any air exchange machines or air filtration machines, we'll do so.
In the past, parents have provided hand sanitizer and cleaning supplies. Will there be funds available to supply teachers with additional supplies such as hand sanitizer, wipes, cleaning supplies, or should parents plan to supply these as well?
John doesn't have a mic, but I will speak, and he can just nod that John has purchased and continued to purchase all PPEs, hand sanitizers, masks, cleaning supplies since March. He's been procuring and getting stockpiles of this, and when we couldn't get them, when they were 4 weeks behind, they started coming in over the summer. John continued to order for the district so that we would have plenty. I want to thank Central School, Mrs. Byrne, and all of the parents from past to present that we've had at Central School. They helped us through that first couple of weeks when we started to run out of hand sanitizer. Mrs. Byrne had asked all of her teachers, but really the kindergarten teachers, if they would mind sending up some of their wipes and some of their hand sanitizer and some of their additional supplies that they had. And with our parents and our community, we got us through the entire, those remainder, that week that we were here, but also they got central office through, and the principals who stayed with us for a couple of weeks there before we sent them home. So I want to thank Central School and all the parents that helped out on that. But yes, as of right now, we do have Plymouth County COVID response money and the CARES Act money that John is able to purchase these items with, and we're ahead of that, and I believe we're going to be okay. I would probably still say that Mrs. Byrne and her teachers will always send out the list of what children need to bring to school on the first day, whether it's Kleenex and hand sanitizer or a sharpener. box of crayons, all those types of things that we see on the list. We try to supply all of those things, but parents like to send things in, and we ask that wait for Mrs. Byrne and her teachers to send a supply list out, as well as Mr. Gentile and his teachers, as well as the high school. We can't overload these rooms anymore. We need the space at this time.
May I just add, one of the recommendations we're preparing with teachers is for parents to have, if we have a hybrid or the students are remote, for families to know what a remote toolkit should be for their kid at home. So supplies their students should have for their home environment when they're learning remotely. Just a different take on supplies this year.
Thank you. This is a parent concern about while in school buildings, they feel students should be required to wear masks, specifically as the CDC recommends, cloth face covers of at least 2 layers. Their concern is that the Viking gaiters are being promoted and sold, which they've read are less effective at reducing the spread of the virus. Is there going to be any requirements around masks?
We are not required to supply masks. However, we did purchase many of our own masks. These are 2-ply cloth masks. Have a school emblem, the Viking, on it. We are giving these to students. John, I think he told me yesterday, is it 40,000, John? Or 20,000?
40,000 additional masks over and above.
So we have 40,000 over and above these, and those would look like Mr. Gentile's or the fabric, or I don't know, the paper fabric that they are. Yep. Again, what Sue Malloy said a few minutes ago, and I'm going to reiterate this, and I said it to the task force. If you drive into this building, or you go to any baseball field, or see kids playing outside, they're not wearing masks. We're going to make sure that kids wear masks, the teachers wear masks. When I'm in the buildings, I will wear masks. When I'm out and about, I will wear my mask. We cannot put the onus on just the schools. We must have the honor system. Kids are out there playing on the field. They're taking their masks off. Or they don't even have them riding their bikes. And I came in this morning at 8:30, and there was 3 kids on bikes. They had no masks, and they were out there talking. So I know people want to say, well, in the schools, they're going to be in tight quarters. They're going to be this. Well, we either need to practice out there, because I know that there are pool parties going on. I know that there are kids eating over at other kids' house. I know that people are staying in their own little cohort of their friends, and that's well and good. We can't just put the onus on the schools. If we're going to be together, then we all take on the responsibility that we got to talk to each other and make sure, just like Sue said, stay on the honor system. If you feel that you went someplace, someone was infected or affected by this, then let us know, and then we'll get through it.
My daughter will be in 1st grade at Central, and will she be required to wear a mask all day while at school?
Central School students are asked to wear masks. Students will have mask breaks throughout the day, and that will be for all grades, pre-K to 2.
Will we allow parents or volunteers to ride the bus to assist the drivers with enforcing masks and social distancing?
Yes, we will allow parent volunteers for this time. They will have to be Corey cleared and fingerprinted. We'll also have to talk to Lucini Bus Lines if they would allow a volunteer on the bus.
When we left school in March, most businesses moved remote or closed altogether, which allowed for parents to help children with their remote studies. Most businesses are now open and parents have returned to work. What, if anything, can the school do to help ease the burden on working parents who may suffer a hardship if their children are not 100% in the classroom?
We understand that the burden that it places on families if their children are not back in school 100%, as well as the fact that it may be a hardship for families to be able to provide daycare options for their students. So we are trying to support that in assisting families by looking at other places within the town that could be repurposed for students to be on their remote days, especially if we're in a hybrid setting. So we will be working on trying to provide those opportunities and options for parents if we are in a hybrid or remote setting. And I think that's why we are striving for in-person, knowing the difficulties and the burdens it places on families, but certainly need to do that following all the safety protocols.
If school is only to be conducted in a hybrid or 100% remote fashion, will there be a prorated or full refund of transportation fees?
It's a difficult question, but at this time, no. But it is a difficult question because of the model that we will be proposing to the school committee. So once the model is put in place, we know who the cohort is going to be. The task force, and as many of you know, I had to put in on July 31st, we needed to put in our initial model. We put in a hybrid model, and if we were to do a hybrid, who are the students coming to school? Everybody says, well, go, A through L and M through Z. That doesn't really work. So we thought that was going to be easy for us to do A through L and then M through Z. But the more the principals continued to look at that and put their cohorts down, we found that, on one day, the teacher had 17 kids in a classroom, and then the next day they'd have 2. So they're doing cross sections of their classrooms right now. They're doing cross areas. Mr. Shea in transportation, they're looking at geographic to talk to the principals about. But at this time, no, there was not going to be any refund. And the transportation is very difficult to speak to at this time because the school committee needs to tell us the model that they are going to choose. Our recommendation most likely is a hybrid at this time. If we go into that and they accept that, and we recommend that forward, then the principals will go through and figure out who's coming in each cohort.
Do we know if transportation will be provided under 2 miles?
Well, we're going to do the best of our ability to pick up students under 2, but we know that students who I legally have to pick up, they will certainly be picked up regardless of where they're located.
Last question. As a working parent, unless you allow kids to be in the building 45 minutes early, it would be difficult for me to transport my child.
So I have spoken to Dr. Williams about this. She oversees that part of the before and after care. We will look at that. We'll see if we can get people in to open this up at, I think we opened up last year, if I'm not mistaken, 6:15 or 6:30? 6:45, but we did have one child that needed like a 15-minute window, and they try to do the best that they can to have someone there. If we have to pull it back, we'll do the best that we can. That's something that they are working on right now. But yeah, we'll try to do the best that we can. We understand this is a hardship for everybody. I don't think that anybody wants. I never thought that we would be here again talking about remote, hybrid, or for reopening schools. I thought this was going to be over. I thought once August hit or July hit in the heat, I thought we were going to be done with this and we would be back to school regularly. So this is where we're at. I did want to just, Karen, a couple of things that people need to know is that to email Karen Clifford, kclifford@ebps.net, with any concerns of the reopening of schools. That information goes through Karen to the appropriate people on the task force and the leaders of those task force. The principals tomorrow, Dr. Williams and I have requested that our principals have their models in to us. Central School, Mitchell School, and the high school, we asked for the models to be in today so that we could review the models that they have put in place. They all have them in by today. Dr. Williams and myself will be talking with them about their models to see where we're at and how they look. And then this helps facilities, because once facilities understands what the model looks like at each building, then Mr. Shea and his part of the task force and facilities can start to say what's going to happen in the cafeteria, what's going to happen in band room, what do we need for supplies for the band room, health and safety. That was something that came up about health and safety in Mrs. Clifford's group. was, well, what if the central school does this, and Mitchell School does that, and the high school does this? How are we going to handle those safety protocols? And now that the plans are here, Dr. Williams has the model of curriculum instruction. Principals will report all of their findings and their reopening plans and how they would like to open their buildings. Again, Dr. Williams, it's 5 hours for elementary per instructional day, and 5.5 hours for instruction per day at the junior senior high school. I know people have asked, if we go remote, how does remote look? Dr. Williams will touch on that tomorrow in the task force, and I think it'll come out on what it will look like for all 3 buildings if we were to go to remote. We hope that the hybrid model is accepted. I'd love to see us be in person. We are working with Mrs. Byrne at the central school and looking at options for in-person for our most at-risk and youngest children that we have in the school district. A 3.5-year-old in pre-K, a 4-year-old in pre-K cannot manipulate a remote learning on a computer or a Chromebook. A 5-year-old just can't do that, do kindergarten at home. It doesn't work. If we're supplying what we do here at the schools, that's very difficult, and we know that, and we are looking at those models. Yes, can a high school student socially stay connected to their friends with their phones? Yes. Can they get on the Chromebook and talk to their teachers? Watch a live stream? Watch it pre-taped? Yes. But it's not, and it does not, and will never take the place of an in-person instructional day. It will never. I did online courses. Dr. Williams, you've done online courses. I'm sure all of us have done online courses at some point. It will never be the same as an in-person education. We will try to offer the best opportunity and access to our kids here in East Bridgewater that we can. There is no perfect model right now. Mrs. Clifford, you've been talking with everybody. We've been watching. Mrs. Clifford's been on the commissioner calls with me, been on the Lighthouse calls with me, been on curriculum instruction calls with Dr. Williams. There is no right answer, and there's no wrong answer. Are there some districts in the Commonwealth that are going fully remote right now? Yes, there are. Yes, there are. Their data may be different than ours. Their community may be in a different place than ours. So we need to look at it beneficially for what our kids need, how we can support our parents going back to work, how we can support our kids socially and emotionally. We will, as a district, support those kids emotionally, socially, those students with IEPs and our most at-risk students with IEPs. We hope to be holding in-person classes on a daily basis, as Mrs. Burns said about the pre-K. We are looking at the other model in kindergarten at this time, but that has not been concluded that we could offer that or could do that due to class size, due to movement, due to other students in the building. So we are looking at that. Dr. Williams, I don't know if you wanted to just, I know that we talked about having other sites available if we needed rooms, space for either a classroom or before and after. So I don't know if you just wanted to just mention that you have been in contact with.
Sure. I mean, different than last spring. If we need a remote plan for our students, it will certainly be different than the remote plan of the spring. There were really no regulations put upon us in the spring for tracking of attendance, tracking of time on learning, and tracking of grading. So it certainly altered what remote learning would look like for our students. Whereas now this year, we have a requirement of 170 days of instruction with time on learning, as you said, 935 hours at the secondary level 850 hours at the elementary level, which equals the 5 hours, 5.5 hours. So even on remote days, whether students are fully remote or whether they're in a hybrid, there is an expectation that they are learning, that they are able to access live synchronous learning, that they are able to access videos. So as we look at other places within the school buildings or even around the town, they're really going to be learning center environments, not daycares, not babysitting, because students do need to be expected to work and do need to be expected to have access to their academics and curriculum and resources. So we've actually had contact from Joe Leva, the director of the YMCA, which we truly appreciate. He's reached out to us. We'll be talking to him about how some of his space could possibly be repurposed. Certainly, the school district would be training not only our staff members on remote learning, but any of the employees at any of these environments, as well as families and parents who are staying home and assisting their students. So we'll make sure that all those things are put in place much more than they were when we closed in the spring.
I will be talking to Mr. Noble tomorrow. I have a meeting with the town administrator. I will be asking for the use of town buildings that are available to us during the school day. Could be for classrooms, or it could be for before and after care as well, or if we needed an area for whatever one of the buildings or the principals thought that we would need extra space for an extra classroom or an online remote location, but we wanted to be there with the student for an online remote location, we will be discussing that. I can't say enough about the town. They've been working with us, have been giving us as much support as they possibly can. I know that Mr. Shea's up there probably every other day or has conversations every other day. I do talk to Mr. Noble an awful lot, and Sue has now taken on that role of talking with Karen a lot and sharing the data that we have. And I would think, this is going out to the community tonight at 6 p.m. I hope that people watch it, because I think that people need to see that we're not taking this lightly, that we are listening to questions and concerns, and we are thinking globally about this. I would just want to go right down through the principals, because this is their only opportunity that they have, that maybe that they would just like to take a 1 minute, Kate, just 1 minute of some of the things that you're thinking about, or maybe that was a question and concern for yourself and about your teachers and your staff that you know that parents have been thinking about, that you just wanted, that you didn't get to say during the question and answer period, that you may want to just touch upon, or Andrew talking upon. I know people have been asking about the STEAM lab. Is that going to keep going? What's going on with the specials? Types of things like those. I know that they have been addressed here, but it might just be something to put out, and I'll go right through. So Kate, is there anything that you wanted to add that we didn't get to? And I say that 1 minute, Kate.
And I can be short. I think that the questions have been really thorough. I think the community has had a lot to ask and has a lot of questions, which is excellent. You know, it helps us all make sure that we're thinking about all of the right things and that we're all on track. As far as, I just want to thank them and thank all the members of the task force and those parents from Central School and community members that have been part of this process. Obviously, hopefully, you know, we'll share some more information tomorrow, and ultimately school committee make that decision on Thursday. But I would just like to thank the community for being so actively involved. This is an important conversation to have, and we need people to feel comfortable and to know that they have some choices, and that we're going to be responsible with our decision making to put the best plan forward for the safety of students, knowing that, you know, we too wish we could, you know, be back teaching like we did a year ago, but soon enough we'll be able to do that. But so I just want to thank the community for their involvement.
Thank you, Kate. Andrew? Mr. Gentile?
Just to echo some of the things that Mrs. Byrne mentioned in terms of everyone's participation and just the diligence of everyone involved with this process. It's been one that I know I can speak for everybody around these tables. It's something that not only are we working on all day while we're at work, but also, you know, we take home and continue to think about and really try and put our best efforts forward in terms of not only getting the kids back to school, but doing so in a safe way, and also while providing them with the most robust, well-rounded education possible. With regard to specifics at Mitchell, we're working on our plan. I'm looking forward to sharing that with the task force tomorrow to get some feedback and then making it available to parents, at which point certainly be open to answering questions and or concerns that parents may have once we do have that finalized.
Excellent. Mr. Sylvia?
Thank you. We just want to let our students and their families know that, not only are we working on the facility part of it, of the building, but, we're looking at alternative areas that we can maximize spacing, put desks in different areas that we can have a little bit deeper space, so a lot of our active classrooms, teachers, students can still have some remnants of normalcy. Mr. Shea has been diligent enough and kind enough to help at least hear the requests that we've made for technology and additional things to purchase. We have been very lucky to have a central administrative team that's definitely here for all students in the district. We are really looking at our special areas, our technology classrooms, our CAD classrooms, our shop classrooms. We are spending a lot of time trying to figure out how to maximize the space and make sure, again, the normalcy of a day-to-day classroom activities happen. And to reiterate what my colleague said, the task force has been amazing. The community is excellent. We are working as diligently as we ever could. We are trying to find all the obstacles that we might face. We may miss a few. The emails, keep them coming, because we appreciate the information and the advice. So again, we are working hard day to day on everything here at in the entire district, but here at the junior senior high school. And we're going to continue trying to make as much progress as we can.
Thank you. The last thing I would say that the Department of Education, elementary and secondary education, will follow the recommendations from the medical of the American Pediatrics Association, and they will continue to follow, and that will be the data that the Department of Education will relay to us so that we can open in a healthy and safe environment. I will tell you this, that we are hearing the medical profession and many doctors and nurses telling us kids need to get back to school, and we hear them, and we know that. Our teachers certainly want to come back to school. I know the administration team wants us to get back to school, but again, we're going to do it thoughtfully. We're going to use the resources available to us. We're not doing this alone. We're doing it with the community. We're doing it with other districts, and we're doing it with the Commonwealth. And I think if we all do our part, wear our mask, wash our hands, and continue to stay socially distanced, we'll get through this together and healthy. I want to thank all of you for coming this afternoon. I know that we keep pulling you in for meetings, but it's the only way we're going to get through this. And all of you need to stay with Dr. Williams and I for a little bit longer so we can go over your plans before you get them out there tomorrow. We want to thank the community. I hope that we answered many of your questions. If there's more questions, again, it's kclifford@ebps.net. If you have a specific question to the buildings, please give it to the building principals. Transportation, we ask you to hold off for another week on questions for transportation. And again, the local Board of Health, Sue Malloy, I don't think I've ever seen you turn your phone off. Any person that's called her phone, she always picks up, and I've been in meetings with her where she's picked up and answered the call and said, no, you're okay. Or, yep, call me back in 5 minutes and we'll get it done for you. So, Sue, one more thing. Are they still testing at CVS? 18 and over at CVS, Compass Medical, or? Okay, so if you want to get tested, you can start with your own doctor and then go from there. Okay, you have to have a contact or symptoms at this time. Thank you very much, and hopefully we alleviated some of the issues and concerns and got you some answers to your questions today. And we'll see you tomorrow at the task force meeting, and Thursday night, 6 p.m. is a full meeting Anybody is welcome to come to that, to see the superintendent and ask questions prior to the school committee meeting. School committee, again, is at 7 p.m. They will make their final decision and recommendation to go forward for the 2021 school year. Thank you.